Alright, a beautiful morning to you and yours. Rise and shine. It is a minute past 8 a.m. from the studios of Melody 100.7 FM. This is Melody Sunrise and my name is Bolabad. I'm going to be here from now till 9:55. It is a Friday, the last working day of the week, and I'm sure a lot of people are excited about that. But, you still have a couple of hours, so you might want to chill a bit, okay? Alright, so I'm going to be in your ears, in your speakers, in your cars, in your homes, wherever it is that you are listening to me from this morning. Between now and 9:55, we have quite a lot to do together, as you know it. Between now and 8:10, we check out the weather forecast and also check out the motivational quote for today. Okay, so once we do that, we go straight to check out the front pages of various Nigerian dailies making around this beautiful morning, and then we take the major headlines. Okay, and once it is 8:30, the sports crew will be in the studios that goes through the exciting world of sport, and they do that for about 20-25 minutes, and by 9 a.m. we go straight into the People's Assembly where we get to have our serious conversation, and we do that for about 30-35 minutes. And 9:45 would be then moving into the Melody Surprise, where I get to celebrate someone with and for you, and we do that for 10 minutes and then wrap up the show by 9:55. Between now and then, though, there's going to be a lot of great music coming your way to kick off your morning. All right, so without wasting time, let's start with the weather forecast for today in the Brown Roof City. It is about 25 degrees Celsius right now, but the temperature is going to rise to peak at 35 degrees Celsius. It's going to be a rather hot day today, and sunny conditions are expected around 12 noon, and there is no sign of rainfall. Clear skies all through, and wind gust is going to be up to 9 kilometers per hour. All right, so it is partly cloudy now, but it will clear off in a bit around 12 noon. No clouds in the sky up until evening. Sunset is set at 6:55, so you might want to take extra precautions if you're still in the house. Wear something light, okay? Take an umbrella if you're going to be walking in the afternoon. Wear sunshade, take a sunscreen, and invest in a sunscreen, please, okay? I'll take that again. Happiness cannot be traveled to owned, earned, worn, or even consumed. Happiness is the spiritual experience of living every minute with love, grace, and gratitude. And this particular quote is by author and motivational speaker Dennis Waitley, and it emphasizes that happiness is an internal spiritual state rather than a material external acquisition. A lot of people will be like, oh, money can buy happiness, but money can buy happiness. Actually, it has been a lot of argument about that one, saying, I have money, a lot of my problems are, solved and everything. But this quote is emphasizing that happiness comes from within, not from outside. You have to be able to make yourself happy. You can't give that responsibility to someone. It is going to be very unfair of you to put that responsibility on someone else to make you happy every time. You have to be happy. It has to come from within. You have to radiate it. So it highlights that true joy comes from living intentionally with love, with grace and gratitude in the present moment. Now let's look at the key aspect of this quote, right? The first one is the internal versus external. Like I said earlier, money buying happiness and everything. Happiness is not achieved through travel, ownership, or consumption, right? So you have to be able to internalize it and exude it, okay? Another part is active living, because it's the daily minute by minute experience. It is something that you have to actively aspire and work towards, okay? Actively. You can't be passive about it. You have to consistently and actively work towards being happy. The key pillars are love, grace, gratitude. And when I mean love, I'm not talking about romantic relationship. I'm talking about you showing compassion to people. You have to show compassion and acting with compassion. You don't necessarily have to know people to actually be compassionate towards them. You can help a total stranger that you've never met before and you might possibly not see again. Another part is grace, because extending kindness to oneself and to others as well. key part. Extend kindness to yourself. Okay. Another part is gratitude. This one is very, very important. You have to be able to be thankful and grateful for the little things. And once you do that, big things will come through, and even small things that seem like are not big will be enough, right, for that time. When you actually see people doing great, I'm not saying don't aspire to do great as well, but be grateful for where you are as well. Okay, recognizing and being thankful for the present is a way to go, a very, very strong way to go. I would totally recommend that. And do not forget the last part of the quote says, happiness is a spiritual, what's it called now? Spiritual experience. Okay, so it is not something that it is a state of being, not a fleeting emotion or destination. You don't have to say, oh, until I have this amount of money in my account, then I will be happy. No. What if you have depression before you get that money? So I'm just saying. So you have to be actively and consistently aspiring towards being happy, be content, and be grateful for where you are right now, and aspire to do more while maintaining happiness and steeze. Okay, so this philosophy suggests that instead of chasing happiness, one should cultivate it through their perspective and actions, and focusing on appreciating what one already has. So that thing that you have, that's your small car that you're saying that I'm aspiring to buy. See, some people are where you are right now is the prayer point of some people. Now, I'm not saying you should take that and then relax and everything. I'm just saying, learn to be grateful, and happiness would come through. All right, so this one is Happiness Sauce featuring Ghana and Ashake coming through. Stick around.
Àlàyé mi bá mi sọ̀rọ̀ kan kí ló ń lọ. Wọ́n máa rí ìyàwó rẹ̀ mi lọ ń sọ. Wọ́n ní mo give them pressure. Ìjẹ́ má lọ sùn ṣiṣẹ́ lọ, ọmọ ìyàpá ò lọ. Nobody go do as I don't too much. Ẹni tó bá bá aṣọ òṣà ló mọ̀. Àbòkàbò lọ, ọmọ bá ṣì ń lọ. Ìsídìílé kò sí dé bọ̀. Happiness, everythingness. My life no stress. Fine boy no ex. Happiness, everythingness. My life no stress.
on the front pages, and this one says, the first headline I'll be taking says, retract executive order, Pengasan tells Tinubu warns of threat to PIA, and that story is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. NLC fires back at APGC, Gencos over 6 trillion naira bailout demand, and that story is on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper this morning as well. Senate grills economic team consider streaming 2026 budget. Stories on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. The biggest headline on the front page has African leaders as the kicker. How oldest presidents tighten grip on youngest continent. And that stories on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Lakurawa terrorists kill 34 in Kebbi communities. Stories on page 30 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. United States troops deployment to fight insecurity in national interest, says House of Reps. Stories on page 30 as well of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Reps to vote on 1999 Constitution Amendment proposals. And stories on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Let's just hope that 16-year single term is actually not scaling through or even finding its way into that conversation. Moving on from that, CSOs predict apathy as FCT poll tests new Electoral Act INEC's 2027's readiness. And that story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Opposition CSOs take as Electoral Act amendment widens 2027 fault lines. Stories on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this very morning. Now moving on from that to another headline. Rivers Assembly suspends impeachment proceedings against Fubara deputy. Stories on page 29, and we are not surprised by that one. Moving on from that to the front page of Nigerian Tribune this morning. First headline reads, Pengasan faults Tinubu's executive order. The writer reads, says it's direct attack on PIA's provision, and that story is on page 3 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. Rivers Assembly holds impeachment of Fubara deputy, and that story is on page 6 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. Gunmen attack Ondo community, kill monarch. Stories on page 12 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. And to the biggest headline on the front page of Nigerian Tribune, CSOs ADC Kwakwanseya kick as Electoral Act 2026. And that story has a handful of riders. First one says flaws in law will undermine electoral integrity, exclude millions of Nigerians, says CSOs. Another rider says want INEC to publish revised 2027 election timetable. Another rider says ADC faults presidential assent, claims action hasty. Another rider says accelerated assent portends danger of unchecked one-party dominance, says Kwakwanseya movement. And all of that can be found on pages 21 and 22 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. CDS Army Chief flag off Operation Savannah Shield in Kwara. That story has 3 riders attached to it. First one says Abdurazak commends Tinubu. Another one says it is a brief relief to our people. Another rider says CDS seeks public support for operation, and that story is on page 20 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. Osun splits Oshogbo Iwo Ibadan Road to 3 contractors for timely completion, and that story is on page 6 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. Naira seen extending gains as African currencies hold steady. Stories on page 4 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. And to the health column, pre-competition sex can actually boost athletic performance. I'll take that again. Pre-competition sex can actually boost athletic performance according to a study, and that story is on page 18 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. That one I reserve my comment. To the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, first headline reads, El Rufai's lawyers protest home raid amid ICPC detention. Stories on page 7 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Federal government defers 70% of 2025 capital budget to 2026, and that stories on page 29 of the Punch newspaper this very morning. So another headline, Ayedatiwa versus Tunji Ojo. That is the kick of this headline. Political Cold War sparks killings and violence in Ondo, and that story is on page 3 of the Punch newspaper this morning. The biggest headline on the front page of the Punch newspaper says Tinubu executive order, that is the kicker, and the story reads, federal government, states, local governments allocation may increase by 15 trillion naira, and that story has two riders attached to it. First one says president moves to channel oil proceeds directly to federation account. Wow. Another one says NNPC, NUPRC, NRS revenues are affected. And that story is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper this morning. To another headline, Naira hits 2-year high at 1,347 Naira per dollar. And that story is on page 22 of Nigerian of the Punch newspaper, beg your pardon, this morning. DSS invites suspects as wife opens up on Daddy Yatta's abduction, and that story is on page 7 of the Punch newspaper this morning. To another headline, banditry, that is the kick of this headline. CDS, Kwara Governor rally troops as Operation Savannah Shield begins, and that story can be found on page 8 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Now moving on to the front page of Vanguard newspaper this morning. First headline I'll be taking says manufacturers, agri sector face up to 60% interest rates, and that story is on page 19 of Vanguard newspaper this morning. To another headline, Tinubu, Trump, Harris, others mourn as United States civil rights leader Jesse Jackson dies at 84, and that story can be found on page 7 of Vanguard newspaper this morning. Moving on from the front page of Vanguard to that of the Nation newspaper this morning, and this one says Fubara lawmakers set for new dawn, and that story is on page 3. Has a rider says court cases withdrawn. Another headline reads strictly follow procurement laws, federal government orders MDAs. Story is on page 7 of the Nation newspaper this very morning. Moving on from that story to another one. Ex-Kaduna governor in our custody, says ICPC. Stories on page 3, and another headline reads Rivers mourn as Senator Mpingi dies at 64, and that story can be found on page 4 of the Nation newspaper this very morning. Moving on to another headline, and this one says expert endorse executive order on oil gas revenue remittance, and that story has a rider attached to it. Says Pengason seeks reversal of action, and that story is on the front page of the Nation newspaper, but continues on page 3 of the Nation newspaper this morning. How we tracked, arrested, or were church attackers by DSS witness, and that story is on page 4 of the Nation newspaper this very morning. The biggest headline on the front page of the Nation newspaper reads 58.47 trillion naira budget 2026 within safe limits, says finance minister, and that story has two riders. First one says President's Economic Team defends proposal, and the second rider reads cost of borrowing a major challenge. Starts on the front page but continues on page 2 of the Nation newspaper this morning. To another headline, the final one I'll be taking from the front page of the Nation newspaper. Daddy Yatta's wife, that is the kicker. I am sad about El Rufai's son mocking my husband's abduction, and that story is on page 23 of the Nation newspaper this very morning. Now moving on from that, and we head back to the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. First headline I'll be taking says Senate tackles economic team over poor implementation of budget, and that story is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. El Rufai spends second night in ICPC custody amid multi-agency probe. And that story is on page 8 of Vanga newspaper this morning. And another one says, as commission raids residents in Abuja. That one can be found on page 26 of Vanga newspaper this morning. And to another headline, 6 trillion naira Genco bailout demand a heist, says NLC. Stories on page 9 of Vanga newspaper this morning. How we track down arrested or were charged attackers, DSS witness tells court. Stories on page 7 of Vanga newspaper this morning. Edo raises alarm over rising debt service burden, and that story has a handful of riders. First rider says debt servicing cost now outstrips our foreign financial inflows. Another one says G24 cross-border payment too costly and slow, says Cardozo. Another one says members face constrained fiscal space, NASHA says. And all of that can be found on page 19 of Vanguard newspaper this morning. Another headlines read, terrorists kill 34 fasting Muslims in latest Kebbi attack. And that story is on page 6 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. To another headline, this one says 2027 as the kicker, Electoral Act amendment was credible, inclusive, says NAS. And that story has 3 riders attached to it. First one says ADC vows mass mobilization. Another one says CSO says unhealthy loopholes threatening credibility of polls. And the final rider says we are back to square one, says MBF. And all of that can be found on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper this morning. To another headline, drivers operating under influence will be prosecuted, Lagos State government says, and that story is on page 10 of Vanguard newspaper this morning. And this is as far as we can go, checking out the front pages of various Nigerian dailies. The time is 8:24 from the studios of Melodies 100.7 FM. It is back to the music, and by 8:30, do not forget, the sports crew will be in the studios to take us through the exciting world of sports. In the meantime, this one is Brimo doing Ikorira. Stick around, keep it locked, don't go anywhere.
Kakomi ben korira tara akobi ti a tó ń pọ̀ rẹ́rẹ́ nígbà ìwà ìbàjẹ́ ara rẹ̀ ìgbà kó yára níye kó wà rẹ̀ kó dúró ìgbésí ayé rẹ̀ kíkó rẹ̀ dàbí sẹ́yìn nínú ààrẹ. Ṣùríkà fún ìbàjẹ́ kákó ẹnu tọ́jú ara dára akọlẹ́rú lè dọ̀rẹ́ tó ń gbé níjà akọlẹ́rú lè dọ̀rẹ́ tó ń gbé níjà yàrá ẹ̀dùnṣe
this station, Melody 100.7 FM.
Femi Mobile Asha right there, and it is 8:30 from the studios of Melody 100.7 FM. My name is Bolabad, and this is Melody Sunrise. It is time to talk sports on the show this morning, and I have the Sport Bam Bam in the studios. A beautiful morning to you, Akimbo Bola.
Good morning, Bolabad.
How's it going?
Very fine. It's nice to be here today. There's a lot to talk about in the world of sport.
Have we heard anything from FIFA?
Nothing yet. Nothing concrete. Now, winding us. Well, I mean, let's just wait and see, because FIFA said they've got a lot of things to
that was the last I heard.
Yeah, so
on Wednesday. Today's Friday, though.
Exactly.
I feel like they're just toying with Nigerians' emotions at this point, because it is a lot. It's a lot.
Well, I would always say that we don't have a concrete evidence against against DR Congo. Let them just have their games in peace and qualify probably to the World Cup. But yeah, let's just wait and see what FIFA's got, because I know they would still review the whole situation.
You know, the craziest scenario would be, us winning that and probably having the match rescheduled, and then they beat us. That's going to be really crazy. Like, haven't you guys thought about it? I shouted. Have you thought about it? Like, the match is fixed, and then we play it again, and then they beat us.
It's going to be bad and terrible.
Like,
it happens.
Just go come and let them go. I don't get it. Anyway, moving on from that, what else is going on?
Yeah, for the NFF, they are trying to review the demands of the coach. That's Eric Sekoshel. He brought out a list. It popped up on social media yesterday. He demanded for a lot, $130,000 every month, alongside his coaches, backroom staffs. And the NFF now, they are reviewing the whole situation, the whole things it dropped, because I mean, it's a lot. About 20 days, business class for his children, hours, 24 hours light, and all of it. So they're trying to review it and see if there's a way forward with Eric Sekoshel, or probably they will drop him and get a new coach and all of it. And they've also announced vacancies for several countries' youth and women's national team position, like the under 20 men, the under 23 men, Olympic Eagles, under 17 men, Golden Eaglet, under 17 women, Flamingos. So these positions are opened right now for people that want to get to this position. They have 1 week deadline for submission and all of it. And and basketball too. We'll talk about a story from cricket and a couple of other stories.
Okay, so all of that will be coming your way between now and 9 a.m. I'll return by 9 a.m. to the microphone, but just hang in there and get ready to talk sports, because I mean, it is time and you are welcome.
Throw from deep in now. It's a catching ball. It's Martins.
Josie Yobo, good.
And it's just out to the phone.
Double Odesi.
Sensational. What a wonderful finish. That is the most embarrassing own goal. Oh, what a goal. And something out of nothing. He struck it sweetly. And does he ever score ordinary goals? They're all copybooks off.
Top of the morning to you from wherever you're listening. This is Melody 100.7 FM. On this show, we serve you the best of sporting stories, making the rounds in the ever exciting and ever buzzing world of sports. Alright, it's a lot to talk about today. I'm going to be talking about basketball stories, we talk about cricket, we talk about the round letter game of football. starting with basketball today.
Starting the scoring, double figures in fourth. G. Santos gets the steal. He coming up with the steal. Anthony Melton not settling for the three and banking it home over Hauser. Transition, pace, get your pace up, run. Jaylen Brown, there it is, getting inside. That's what he wants to do, and he's done it better than any other year of his career. He's ultra aggressive, ultra confident. He's got counter moves. Melton inside, floating it up and in. Keita couldn't get to it. I said it, he can get to the basket pretty much anytime he wants. When he comes to his legs, he's got his legs under him. His Hauser knocks that three off the ball screen. The screeners. He's averaging 30 a game on the road. As Melton bottoms a three. Rebounding his own miss. Now unable to bank it home. Long rebound. This is where Boston, you can't have that. Wolf's got the rebound and had a free run all the way to the rim. Tornado move when you least expect it. And there's little resistance in the lane. They're not going to stop. 18 points in the paint. JP2 with a three. Have had none. They look like a team that's won 6 of 7. Horford on the back down. Will Richard an open three? Perfect. Inside out. Final 7-second shot clock off. Horford looking for Pat Spencer. Better find the rebound. The Warriors switched. Boston just owned the second quarter. And White bringing that one home. That was good. They got some tricks up their sleeve. Which you have to credit Boston. Yes, Steph Curry's not playing, but the Warriors are still the 8th best defensive team in the NBA. And they're getting carved up tonight by very good offense. When Boston was on that second quarter run, find a way to end it as they find Keita.
Alright, that was how we found out between Golden State Warriors and Boston Celtics. Well, Boston Celtics defeated Golden State Warriors 121 to 110. Other matches we saw Charlotte Hornets, they were defeated by Houston Rockets 105 to 101. Cleveland Cavaliers defeated Brooklyn Nets 112 to 84. For Atlanta Hawks, they defeated Philadelphia 76ers 117 to 107. And for Washington Wizards 112 to 105. Detroit Pistons 126 to 111. Where Cade Cunningham put up for 3 points. Toronto Raptors defeated Chicago Bulls 130 to 101. San Antonio Spurs 121. And they defeated Phoenix Suns 94 right there. So it was 124 to 94. For Victor Wembanyama, he put up 17 points in that game. Orlando Magic had Sacramento Kings for barbecue chicken as they defeated them 131 to 94. And it was a slim victory for Los Angeles Clippers as they defeated Denver Nuggets 115 to 114. So that was how we found out in the National Basketball Association. So that's the first game after the NBA All-Stars. So it's all the best to this day right there. Right, leaving basketball and straight to cricket. The Nigerian Cricket Federation has announced the commencement of zonal qualifiers across the 6 geopolitical zones for the 2026 National Under-17 Boys and Girls Championship. Now, starting with the Southwest and Southeast zones on February 18, the qualifiers will run until March 1, with the best players from all 36 states expected to represent their respective zones at the main tournament in Abuja. Now, matches in the Southwest zone are being held at the MK Abiola Sport Arena in Abeokuta until February 21, while the Southeast qualifiers are taking place at the Government College Owerri until February 22. Now, attention will shift to the Northwest zone from February 25 with matches scheduled in Kaduna, while Adamawa will host a state in the Northeast. For qualifying matches in the South-South zone will be played in the Edo State, while the North-Central qualifiers will take place at the twin cricket overs of the Moshood Abiola National Stadium, Package B in Abuja. The Nigerian Cricket Federation said in a statement that the National Under-17 Championship is the biggest age-grade tournament in Nigeria and also in West Africa, and it serves as a platform to identify the new next generation of national team players for the country. Right there, the photo said that proudly the current senior men's and women's national teams are made up of 70% of players who have passed through the system, while 100% of the national under-19 players in both male and female categories are product of this tournament. I mean, I love to see 8th grade tournaments, and for cricket, maybe we are not really big in Nigeria, but it's nice to see that this one is set to hold on. That's the Under-17 Championship. Big ups to the organizers and also the guys that will be representing their different geopolitical zones right up there. Alright, leaving cricket and straight to the UFC, where former UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman has revealed a bold blueprint for the final chapter of his fighting career, announcing his intention to retire only after capturing both the welterweight and the middleweight world titles, a world will rank him among the most remarkable comeback stories in mixed martial arts history. The Nigerian Nightmare laid out his ambitious two-division plan at a time when many had begun to write up his prospects of returning to the sports summit, having suffered back-to-back losses to Leon Edwards and a defeat to Khamzat Chimaev at the middleweight on short notice. Questions about whether the 36-year-old best days were behind him had grown louder, but Usman silenced some of his doubts with a victory over Joaquin Buckley, and according to Clutch Points, the Nigeria has now set his sights on a target that would place him alongside Conor McGregor, Daniel Cormier, Amanda Nunes, and Eric Kejudo as simultaneous two-division UFC title holders and UFC title champions right there. The first obstacle is reclaiming the welterweight throne, a belt he held for more than 3 years before Edwards returned him. The division has shifted considerably since then, with a dangerous and involving landscape featuring undefeated contender Michael Morales and rising names such as Lan Gary and Carlos Perez all competing for the position. The middleweight ambition presents an even steeper climb, with Chimaev, who was Usman's conqueror on his debut in the 185 pounds, has since gone on to claim the middleweight belt with a dominant performance over Dricus Duplessis, and he has only improved since that pyramid. With all the best to Kamaru Usman